Welcome. Let's take a look at how we could kind of conquer this budget challenge problem. So we have a series of data on the left-hand side, and we're going to use this data in order to forecast our company's sales budget, unit purchases budget, and cash budget on the right-hand side. Now, first, before I kind of dive right into this, I just want to say a lot of times what you see on these left-hand columns may differ a little bit from what you see in your textbook, another textbook, and in the field, right? I think the most important thing when it comes to creating budgets is that you are kind of communicating what is necessary very clearly and concisely, right? So if yours differs a little bit from what's here, as long as it is something that an accountant or a client can follow, you're fine, right? So you might see some differences here, but if you're getting the same results, if you are clearly labeling your data, you might have something a little different from this, and that would absolutely be acceptable. Okay, so we are going to be doing these budgets for June, July, and August. So I'm going to keep these columns consistent all the way down for this whole problem. First things first, sales budget should always be your first budget that you complete. We are going to be grabbing the expected unit sales for June. And here I'll even try to be consistent with my cell referencing since I'm always so big on it in class. So June, July, August. Okay. These are not dollar signs, so let's get rid of that. Okay. So we know that these are our expected sales. And then we also know that we have a budgeted sales price of $102. So we sell each of these units for $102 each. I'm going to cell reference here. I'm going to drag this over. Look, this is going to turn into an Excel video. But notice when I drag it over, it drags over the column as well. If I don't want to do that, we can absolute it. A nice fast way to absolute a cell is to press F4 on your keyboard, by the way. Those dollar signs are going to keep it static. That way when I drag it, drag, it stays. Okay. Sorry, I'll try not to do too much Excel in this video. And then we're simply going to multiply to find out what the total budgeted sales are. That's it for the sales budget. Sales budget is very quick. So we expect to get 204,000 June, 142,800 July, 153,000 August. Next is going to be our unit purchases budget. And go ahead and just copy these down for fun. There we go. All right, current month's unit sales. We already have those up above. Just use a format painter for that. Boom, 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 done. All right, and we also know that we are going to have to deal with a little bit of desired ending inventory here. Now, according to this problem, their desired ending inventory is based on 55% of the next month's sales. So in June, my desired ending inventory is going to be 55% of July's anticipated sales. So equals 55%, and again, I'm going to drag this, so I want that to stay consistent, so I'm going to do F4, and that way it won't drag over when I do it. I always want it to be 55, so 55% of this month's sales. Okay. So June is going to 55% of July's anticipated sales. Okay, that dollar sign. I'm going to drag it over, but you'll see there's an issue. Let's also make that into a unit. There we go. Notice that August, we don't have anything here, so I have to change my August to August anticipated unit sales. Oh, sorry, August. Boom. That is August, so I want the next month, September. There we go. And then we're simply going to add these together. Please don't give me a dollar sign. Oh gosh, darn it. There we go. Those are all going to be in regulars. There we go. Next, we have to deal with our beginning inventory. For the first month, June here, they don't give us in units what our beginning inventory is, but they do give us in dollars our ending inventory from May. So at the end of May, we had $52,800 in merchandise inventory. Keep in mind that the end of May is the beginning of June. So technically, for the month of June, I had $52,800 in merchandise. And that is for a $55 purchase price per unit, which means that my beginning inventory is $960 for June. For July, my end of June is the beginning for July. And then for August, my beginning of August is my ending for July. So beginning of June, ending of June, beginning of July, ending of July, beginning of August. And let's minus those. So just to kind of talk about the flow a little bit in more detail, keep in mind we have to cover our current month sales, but we also want to have a little bit of desired ending inventory. So to cover our sales and have a little left over, we need 2,770 units. But we already had 960 in beginning inventory, so we really only have to purchase 1,810 units. Then we need our purchase price per unit, which is $55 per unit. Let's absolute that. Drag it over. And then we see that our total purchases, if we multiply that out, there we go. Okay. Okay, now we're going to deal with the cash budget. And the cash budget, if you did cash receipts and cash disbursements budgets separately, that's absolutely fine, right? Here I just have it included in here, so I don't have to have a bunch of supplemental schedules for this, so I'm just going to put everything into one budget. First things first, beginning cash budget for June. We ended May with $8,000, so we started June with $8,000. And now for my cash receipts, I want to know how much in June I collected from April sales, May sales, June sales, July sales, and August sales, right? So let's start with April sales. Our key here is going to be this section right here that talks about the collections from customers. 20% is collected in the month of the sale, 60% is collected in the month after the sale, 20% is collected 2 months after the sale. So when we take a look at our sales, which let me really quickly do a little cheat here. Just a reminder, this is the cash budget, so this is all in dollars. I'm going to take all of these sales and multiply them by the sales price per unit, right? So you'll notice when I do this, and actually this one I want to go down. So the blue one I want to go down, but I want to keep that 102 consistent. So I'm going to put my cursor in there and F4 it to keep it absolute. If I drag this down, notice that it does for June, July, and August. We technically already solved for those. But we might need some of these other months for what we're about to do, okay? So if I take a look at April, following this schedule here, for my April sales of $153,000, 20% of that $153,000 will be collected in April right away, right? And then the other 80% is just going to be pushed off. So that's going to be accounts receivable for a future period, right? So here, this 153, 20% of it will be collected in April. 60% of it will be collected in May. And 20% of it will be collected in June, right? So how does that affect us here? Well, we don't have April or May there, but we do have June. So technically from April sales, I'm going to be collecting 20% of it in June because this is 2 months after the sale occurred. So 20% of my April sales will be collected in June. Now, let's drag that down. Boop. Now, when it comes to April, if 20% is collected in April, 60% in May, and 20% in June, nothing is collected in July and August, so I am done with April. Let's look at May sales. For my May sales, 20% of it is going to be collected in May, 60% is going to be collected in June, and 20% will be collected in July. So let's go to my April sales. I am going to be collecting some in June. I don't care about May because I don't have May here. But I know for my May sales, I'm going to be collecting 60% of it in the month after the sale, which would be June. So I'm going to collect 60% of May's sales in June. Now the remainder for May's sales, 2 months after May, which would be July, I'll be collecting 20% of May's sales in July. Okay, let's keep going. For June, let's go to June. In June, we will collect 20% of June sales. We will be collecting 60% of June in July. And we will be collecting 20% of June in August. So you're seeing there's a little bit of a flow happening here, right? Okay. Let's go to July. In July, we will be collecting 20% in July, 60% in August, and we don't really care for this purpose, but 20% in September. So keep in mind we don't care about June because we're not going to collect anything in June for July's sales because they haven't occurred yet. So for July, we are going to be collecting 20% of July's sales in July and 60% of July's sales in August. And then we don't care about September. And then lastly, August, 153,000. We're going to be collecting 20% of that in the month of the sale. So now we have to find our total cash available. Oh, why am I doing that? That's foolish. All equals. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, it's because I have the 0. Let's do it. Got to get more used to this, right? All equals. There we go. I want the 8,002 because I want to know the total cash available. So that would be cash collections and cash available. So now I know how much cash is available for each period. And I'll fill those in later. Let's keep going. Now I need my cash disbursements. For merchandise, purchased merchandise, purchased materials are paid for the month after purchase. So purchased materials are paid for the month after we purchase them, which means that when we purchase materials, we end up paying for them the month after, right? So when I go ahead and spend $99,555, I'm not actually paying for it in June. I'm putting it on account and I'm paying for it later. So we know July and August, but what's June? For June, here's our accounts payable from May. Variable expenses, they tell us those are 35% of sales. So 35%, absolute it, for it, times budgeted sales, drag it over. Next, fixed expenses, 15,000. The depreciation is already included in there. Drag it over. Oh, there we go. That's why absoluting is important. F4, now drag. There you go, 15,000 each year. Interest paid, we're gonna have to do this period by period. Currently, we don't have listed any debt, so it doesn't look like we've borrowed anything. So for this month, June, we have no interest. So let's figure out what our total disbursements are. And I'll drag this over for later, for when we figure out what these missing interest pieces are. So currently, technically, these need to be filled in. We'll come back to them. So total so far for June, we see our disbursements, and let's see what our cash balance is before we finance. So we have 140,600 cash available, but we need to spend 161,200 in the month of June. So we're in the negative here. Now, we also have a desired cash balance of $8,000, right? Which means that technically we aren't low by negative 20,600. We are low by $28,600. So we're going to have to borrow some money to cover that. Let's borrow that $28,600, which means that our ending cash balance is going to be equal to what we have available, which is negative, plus what we borrowed, $8,000. And there's that minimum cash balance again. So let's run through this again for July. Beginning cash is June's ending. Running through most of this has already been filled out. Let's get here to the bottom. Okay. Here at the bottom, we have some interest paid. Okay. But for our interest paid, it says 1.5% is paid on borrowed amounts. The one thing that I kind of want you guys to keep in here, actually I might go ahead and 1.5 is paid. Let's do that note. Yeah, I'm going to add that in. Because here, when we take a look at this 1.5%, we've been preaching all this time that percentages for interest are always annualized. So technically, what this problem is trying to communicate to us is that 1.5% is paid per month. And so I think we need this note. So this 1.5%, without a note, you kind of need to assume that's annualized, but it's not. They're trying to tell you it's per month. So interest of 1.5% is paid on borrowed amounts each month. Let's change that to each. Sorry, changing a problem on you midway through. Just to make sure it's super, super clear. Okay. So let's figure out what our interest would be. So we borrowed $28,600. And we are doing interest of 0.015%. So we're going to pay $429 in interest, which means that the cash available before financing is, whoa, not that. There we go. $14,401. We want to have a minimum cash balance of $8,000, which means that we have a little extra. So what we're going to do is we're going to repay a little bit of this balance. There you go. So we're going to pay off a little bit of this $28,600. And we're left with $8,000 again. So we had $14,401 available. We paid back $6,401. We have our minimum cash balance of $8,000. August is left. The ending of July is the beginning of August. We have everything else filled out. We need to find our interest paid. Interest paid. Let's figure out what the balance is. We borrowed $28,600, but then we paid back $6,401. So whatever that balance is, we have to pay 1.5% on that. There we go. I'm pretty sure this number, by the way, is being rounded. So don't worry about rounding it. Go ahead and round it to the nearest dollar. You don't want to drag that out to cents. We can be off by 1 cent. Immaterial. All right, let's see what our cash balance before financing is. So cash available minus cash disbursements means that we have $16,172. Great, which means that we get to pay back a little bit of our loan. So are we anywhere near paying it off? Let's take a look just off to the side. No, nowhere near. So yeah, we're going to use all of that $8,172 on the loan, which means that our ending cash balance, if we spend $8,172 on the loan, is $8,000. All right, so that is our budget challenge problem answers. Keep in mind as you're going through this again, if yours doesn't perfectly match up with what's here, that's fine. Again, reports can differ as long as they are easy to understand and to navigate, okay? Like if you decide to do your cash receipts in a separate schedule, that's fine. If you decided to write out something a little bit different, that's fine. And the important thing is, could someone read it and understand it, okay? But otherwise, good work. The only other thing, by the way, now I'm getting weird about reports, is I'd probably change these to something just to kind of break them up. See, now I'm getting obsessive. There you go. Nah, I don't need it. I was going to put little borders around it. But yeah, so we have our 3 budgets. Please make sure to know sales budgets, unit purchases budgets, maybe a cash budget. I haven't decided if I'm putting one on your exam or not, but if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. Keep up the good work.